Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black, Bespoke Radio for the masses. Yeah, man. Today is Monday, October 23rd, 296 days into the new year, just 69 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? It is Monday. I am in the chair. After the week last week and the weekend that I've had, I need this chair right now. So good to be back with you. What a great week we've got lined up here on Fade to Black. Tonight, that's right, very special guest, and back with us, the one and only Dr. Robert Schoch is here. Oh, man. Always great when he's on the show. He's one of the best. Professor at Boston University, tenured. And tonight, we're going to talk about the fourth pyramid, the second Sphinx. We're going to talk about Giza. We're going to talk about cosmic interference with our history. We're going to do all of that tonight with Robert Schoch. And he is, you know, out of everybody in academia and also throughout our research community, to have somebody of his stature come in and say the world is not what it seems, and here is the proof. He is in our corner, all right? And we always have dynamic conversations with him. I posted a picture. It's up on, I think it's on our Facebook page, but I posted a picture of Robert taking a picture of me, taking a picture of him. It was one of those moments in time, and it's an amazing picture. So go, and I was talking to him earlier today. I said, dude, man, where's the picture that you took of me taking a picture of you? We've got to get those up side by side because it was a moment in time. And actually, we did that like 3 times over a 3 or 4 day period. I kept turning around, and Dr. Schoch is taking pictures of it. So I would turn around and take it. I would bust him taking pictures, right? And totally cool. So I posted that picture today. You can go and check it out. I'm sure you guys are going to get this up on Twitter here very quickly, and I will retweet it once it's up there. It's pretty cool. So that's tonight. Tomorrow night, author Steve Alton is going to be here. We're going to talk about his new book, Undisclosed. He is not only New York Times, but a worldwide best-selling author. His books, like Meg, are very, very good. He's one of the best. But his newest book, Undisclosed, is a novel on us, about our community, about zero-point energy, about UFOs and disclosure and pilots and the military and the Pentagon and the White. It's all in there. So we're going to discuss that tomorrow night. Wednesday night, we have Michaela Sheldon here. We've got to do one of those open your mind, become awakened shows. And we do that, pretty much once a week. So there we have a nice complete week here on Fade to Black. But Thursday night is our 4th annual Halloween special with Shah, the Loon Witch. Now, as you know, this is our 4th annual show. We are going to bust out a couple of hundred phone calls on Thursday night with Shah, the Loon Witch. She will read your fortune, your future, something about you in 60 seconds. And we will, like I said, we're going to break through 100, 200 phone calls that night. So the phone lines are going to stay jammed all night long. Just stay on the phones. We will get everybody in. Well, we'll try to. All right, like we do every year. So it's going to be a great show. What a great week, right? Right here on Fade to Black. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do, at JChurchRadio. Facebook, YouTube, everything is Fade to Black, Jimmy Church Radio. You know what to do. It's simple. Just go over to the website, click on those 3 little buttons, follow, like, and subscribe. You want to hang out on Twitter? Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. All of the chat rooms are open and live right now. As you know, they're all spread out in front of me here in the bunker. So we have Spreaker live. We have the KGRA chat room live. Of course, Twitter is live. And if none of that works for you, there's always email, jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. All right. In just a few minutes, I want to welcome, and I want you to welcome our new sponsor, Daniel Brigman of New Manna is going to join us. And yes, New Manna, emergency food storage that you will love to eat. And it just turns out that's my snack time now. I don't know if Daniel knows it, but New Manna was very gracious and hooked us up with what we needed. And I got to tell you, I've been eating it. I can't stop eating New Manna. So I'm going to find out where those recipes come from. We'll do all of that tonight in a few minutes with Daniel. And if you order New Manna, you will get, and mention my name, you will get, and use the promo code Jimmy, you'll get a 5% discount and an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Shipped a bunch of them today, by the way, autographed t-shirts. I've been signing them, everybody, the New Manna shirts in gold. How is that? All right, so go and get yours. Don't forget about the Unity workshops. They are starting production right now in their first series of podcasts. They are calling on researchers and experiencers on portals to join this project. They do need production help, producers and writers. And so all you have to do for the Unity podcast is go and sign up at theunityproject.org or contact John. What is that? You are not online? Okay. All right. I'm not sure. Oh, she's referring to Twitter. Okay. I get it. Rita is texting me right now. Subscribe to our podcast. You can do that. Over 740 archive shows right now. All platforms, Android, Apple, just $2 a month. You can go sign up at jimmychurchradio.com. Check out all of our sponsors, Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, Rivermoon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, New Manna, and, of course, Bearing Optics. All of their information, all of their promo codes, everything are on the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. So with that, I would like to welcome and introduce to you Daniel Brigman of New Manna. Daniel, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and it's very nice to be with you and your audience. Fantastic.
Man, thank you for all of your support and what New Manna does, for the world. And it's just so funny when I talked about my little experience with my wife, right, where she said, if something happens, we were having, at that time, Daniel, we had fires, right, in our neighborhood here in Burbank. The city's burning down. We had hurricanes going on and earthquakes, down in Mexico and, Houston and Florida. It was just nuts there for about a month. And Rita turned to me and she said, are we ready to go if something happens? And we were not. And so now we are. Today, I feel pretty good about myself, not only with New Manna, but, the other things like glow sticks and flashlights and batteries and things that, you don't really think about. What made you put New Manna together? What was the vision behind New Manna?
Well, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. I don't know if your audience probably has similar, getting a feel for them. Both my grandparents grew up in the Depression. And if you're around people like that, they kind of pass around just this natural ethic to be prepared, to have more than you need, to just store, kind of like the ant and the grasshopper kind of thing. So that kind of stuck with me. As I got married, I started having children or thinking about having children, just the idea, just kind of the same exercise you went through with your wife. Hey, we're not prepared here. There's a fire. I went through with my wife. And it's like, hey, what are we going to do? So we began to look out there for different products to get. And frankly, we were just disappointed what was out there. They're full of chemicals. They didn't taste all that good. I didn't want to eat them. I certainly wouldn't want to feed them to any children that we had in the future. So we just decided to start our own. I mean, that's really how New Manna was born.
Now, okay, what's the secret here? We'll get to the technical stuff, but the taste, man. I mean, there are some recipes going on. Where do the recipes come from?
Well, the secret is I like to eat, Jimmy. That's the secret.
There you go.
The secret is, and so we work on it until it tastes good. We have formulators, and we say, hey, we want to kind of make a recipe kind of like this. This is what we're thinking. We start somewhere, and then we just refine it. Hey, go back, do this, put a little more garlic in it, what have you. And then we just go trial and error till, I like it, my wife likes it, and now our children, especially, we test it on them. They're kind of the guinea pigs of this. It's really that simple, Jimmy.
You know what I did to my daughter? So check this out. And I'm not making this up. Give me 30 seconds. I got to tell you the story. So I'm making the Alfredo pasta, right? She comes home from school. She's in college. She comes home. She's like, man, it smells pretty good. And Rita had told her on the way home, okay, we're making homemade, Alfredo. So, and that's her favorite thing, right? So it was our way to get her to come home after school instead of going out for coffee with her friends, that kind of thing. Well, anyway, she comes home, and I'm stirring, the pot in the kitchen. And I said, taste it. She goes, oh, this is really, she doesn't know it's New Manna, right? She ate the life out of that stuff, and it's really, really that good. And I don't want the audience to think, Jimmy's just saying this. Look, it is I couldn't believe the habanero chili, right? And I was like, there's some recipes going on here. Now, let's talk about some specifics. 25-year shelf life. What are we looking at there? A genuine 25 years?
Yes, absolutely. There's three things that will kill any food. You're putting food in your pantry. You know what the things that kills it: oxygen,
right,
heat, temperature fluctuation. So all those things is the way you package it and the ingredients mixed together. There's a science of the ingredients to go together to be stable and have quality ingredients without using chemicals, and then the packaging itself. So as long as you store it in a cool, dry place, not a garage would be the worst place because of the temperature fluctuation. But, store it in your basement, your house, whatever, it's going to be fine. It's going to last you. It's going to be there 10, 20, probably even 30 years as long as you store it well. It will be there.
No GMOs. I want to make that very clear. No GMOs.
Very important to us. There's a lot of science and people are back and forth on that. I am very suspect of genetically modified foods, and I don't want to eat it, and I don't want my children to as much as I can. And I certainly don't want it in an emergency food. I don't want to survive some disaster or what have you and then have my food kill me. I mean, it's just that simple.
Well, the thing is about GMOs, Daniel, and I know that you're aware of this. Our audience certainly is, but you're messing with Mother Nature. Right, we got here without GMOs.
Yes.
Right. What do you do? We have no idea what the ramifications are 20 years from now, 30 years from now, about changing wheat or corn or anything that is genetically modified. It could we're talking about you're eating altered DNA, right? That's what you're eating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So why would I want to do that?
It freaks me out. It completely freaks me out. You also have, I want to jump into a couple of other things, but you also have an organic alternative too as well.
We have a bucket that's completely organic. The whole thing we jumped through, believe me, it was very difficult to get that certified completely organic, everything in it. to take it into a higher level of ingredients, quality, cleanliness. Our regular buckets are GMO-free, very good. That's our best seller. The family pack is our best seller. Easy to use, simple, and a lot of variety for people.
And also, now we need proteins. You know, you love to eat too. So what are your solutions for that?
Well, most of the meals are just like you said, stuff like sweet habanero chili, which is the beans got protein. They're all vegetarian because, you know, somebody in your family, they may not like meat. Another may like meat. You know, one may not. So we put all the meals vegetarian, and then we have buckets full of freeze-dried meat. So we have organic chicken, we have beef, we have regular crumble chicken, chicken chunks that are freeze-dried. So you can add them to the meals or you cannot, whatever is easiest for you and your families. You decide. But it gives you a very high source of protein. We also have powdered milk, organic powdered milk, which is another very good source of protein. Now, when I was a kid, and I know you're going to laugh at this, you were scared of powdered milk, right? Absolutely. Okay. You know, people ask me all the time about that. I said, look, that organic milk, if you mix it as it says and you put it in the refrigerator, you'll think it's better than the milk you buy at the store. Yeah, I promise you, it's very, very good. That red and white box. When I was a kid, I was scared of that. Yes. That powdered milk box. Back to the freeze-dried chicken and the meat products. When you are prepping the food, do you have to prep those separate, or can you just put that in the habanero chili or the pasta or whatever you're cooking? Yes, you could do them separate or together, you know, like I said, depending on your family. You could do it either way. Now, for you, I'm going to tell you what my favorites are. I know that you've got one that stands out for you. What's the one that you're most proud of, the recipe? There's probably, I mean, honestly, there's probably 6 of them that I just really love. I like all of them, or I wouldn't sell them. Right. I like all of them. 6 of them I love, but my absolute favorite is, sweet habanero chili and pasta primavera are my 2 favorites. Now, I don't know if I can. Yeah, those are my 2 favorites. Okay. No, wait a minute. We didn't mention the mac and cheese. So we're going to come back to the mac and cheese. The pasta primavera, I make the best red sauce in the world. Nobody makes a better red sauce than Jimmy Church. And that's it. Don't save the email, everybody, okay? Which is the truth. So I needed to test that first. How do you pull that off? I mean, seriously, so the whole thing is cooked, and then I don't know. How do you – I don't know. I'm mystified. It's magic. We put it in a magic cauldron at midnight under a full moon. Right. All the products in there, all the ingredients that are in the meals are either freeze-dried or dehydrated. And then there's one thing to make a meal that tastes good. Now, 2, you got to make it to be able to store long, to be able to sit in the packaging, and to be able to keep its freshness and vitality so that, 10 years from now, you can open it and you're going to get a quality product. So it's a trial and error. There's a lot of science to it and to make it, but basically freeze-dried, dehydrated ingredients that are stable that also mix together well. That's the basic core of it. Now, we're gonna talk about some other stuff, but mac and cheese in the United States, if you are going to have a mac and cheese product, you have to bring your A game, right? That'll make or break a company. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So, all right, just indulge me. What's up with the mac and cheese? Whose recipe is that? Again, it's the same. It's, basically my children's, to be honest with you, because it's them. Do you like it? Yeah, we like it. Okay, it's good. It must be good. The children are smiling and they're asking for more. So it's their recipe more than anybody's. Yeah, the mac and cheese is spot on. I'm telling you that Numana has got it dialed. It's not like what I grew up with. My dad was in the military, right? So when we went camping, you know what we had? MREs. Oh yeah, right? MREs. And those it's a unique part of my childhood. We'll let that go. This is not
This is not that, is it? I mean, you guys have taken it to a whole nother level. This is something that you're not embarrassed by. And if it's an emergency, at least you guys are going to eat really, really well. And that part of the game is removed. You guys are going to be happy.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, I think, before. I don't see any reason why anybody in America who doesn't, have people they're responsible for, their family, themselves, whatever, would not have either our food or something like it in their house. I see no reason. And with Numana, the food is good enough quality that you invest in stock, you might invest in silver and gold, you put money in the bank. Well, the price of food is going up. So at worst case scenario, the food is good enough quality that you could eat it later, and as the price of food goes up, you just paid yourself a dividend. So it's a no-lose investment. This is a no-lose investment, a really quality product that if you need it and you have it, you're really glad. If you need it and you don't have it, oh my goodness, are you in trouble?
And now the other part of this is, as you know, we've discussed this, and our audience certainly knows this. Our sponsors are part of our family, right? Our audience is a family. Everything that we do is and I want my audience to know exactly how I feel and how our sponsors feel about not only us, but our audience. And that's what's most important. But for Numana, we're talking about family-owned, made in the USA. I mean, first and foremost, that is out front, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's very important for us and for our family and for your confidence and our consumers' confidence. Products made in America are better, especially food products. We don't get ingredients from China. We look for good quality ingredients, and we're a family-run, family-owned, family-supported business. It's that simple.
The other day, it's funny that you mentioned that. The other day, Rita and I were literally buying snacks for our dogs, right? And Rita goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, I want to know where these are made. Right? So China, right, back on the shelf. China. I need, and it's important. And if I do that for my family, I'm going to do that for my other extended family, my pets. It's what I do. And so I want to thank you for that part of it. Now let's talk about, and it's just very important for our audience and how we feel. And for the special that you've got going for the Fadernauts, let's talk about that for a second. This was your idea. By the way, I want you to back me up on this, Daniel. When we were first talking about this, it was you that said, what can we do for the Fadernauts? I've got this idea, I've got this idea, I've got this idea. And these were your ideas. And I want to thank you for that.
I love working with usually it's companies that we work with, but this is a radio show. It's a program. It's a family. It's a movement. And it's even more exciting because they have their own unique ways about them. They have their own bonds about them. And to be, it's kind of like Numana, where we come from. So we'd like to share our family, our closeness with your family. And it's really exciting. So we wanted to, what kind of tie-in can we do? How can we make this unique for your audience? I love that you have a unique name, the Fadernauts. I think that's so cool. And so, we just came up, hey, can we get an autographed T-shirt or something? I can't remember where it first started, but that's pretty much where it got to pretty quickly. Let's get them something autographed. Let's give them a discount. Let's give them an autographed shirt or something that they can get out of this purchase, and they can help prepare their family. They can go camping with the food. They can use it. They can be prepared, and they can get a T-shirt from Jimmy Church. What more do they want?
Man, thank you for that. And it's just so special, and thank you for that. And looking at, the videos with you and your wife and over at Numana, it just lets me know that, again, we've extended this family out and we welcome you and all of the Fadernauts, all of the orders and everything that have happened this week. It just makes me feel good. And I just want to thank you for everything that you do, Daniel. I'm not playing around. Thank you so much.
Thank you for really taking us in. To your family. Thank you. And God bless everybody out there, and let us know any way we can help or any questions we can answer.
Yeah, and what's really cool is now I know that my wife doesn't look at me wondering if I've dropped the ball, right? we have prepared, and I can sleep at night, and that's what's most important, and that's what Numana does for everybody out there. You can just go to sleep knowing that if anything happens, we don't want anything ever to happen, but if it does, you're going to be okay, and that's what you're here for. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Hey, thank you, Jimmy. We'll see you soon.
You got it.
Bye, Fade or Not.
There you go. Daniel Brigman, everybody. Now, all you have to do is go over to jimmychurchradio.com. You can find the Numana banner right there. All you have to do is click on it and use the promo code Jimmy. All orders over $100 are going to not only make sure that you guys are ready to go in the event of something, right? But you're going to get 5% off of your order, and you're going to get an autographed T-shirt. And that's what it's about. Numana, what a great sponsor, great company, made in America, no GMOs, 25-year shelf life, and above all, it just tastes good. All right? You wake up in the middle of the night, and you're like, man, I need that snack. And you run downstairs, you tiptoe, right? And that's it. You can go and mac and cheese. Pasta Primavera. You don't have to tell anybody. All right. Thank you, Daniel Brigman. Again, Numana. The banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'm going to get out of here because it's Monday night. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch. We are going to do a full Giza evening. Everything is on the table, and it always is when Robert is here. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That simple. Come and hang out with us. I'll be right back with Dr. Robert Schoch. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Tepe.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I want to thank Daniel Brigman of New Mana for coming in here. Very, very cool. Thank you so much. The New Mana banners are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. And want to remind you, tomorrow night, author Steve Alton is going to be here. We're going to discuss his new book, Undisclosed. Wednesday night, Michaela Sheldon. Thursday night, our 4th annual Halloween special with Shah, the Loon Witch. Very packed week here on Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch, who is a full-time faculty member at the College of General Studies at Boston University since 1984. He earned his Ph.D. in Geology and Geophysics at Yale, his M.S. and M.Phil in Geology and Geophysics from Yale, as well as his degrees in Anthropology, a B.A. in Geology, B.S. from George Washington University. In the early 1990s, as we all know, Dr. Schoch, along with John Anthony West, recast the date of the Great Sphinx of Egypt from around 2600 BC all the way back to somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,500 BC by demonstrating that the monument had been heavily eroded by water, despite the fact that its location on the edge of the Sahara had endured hyper-arid climactic conditions for the past 5,000 years. Dr. Schoch revealed to the world that mankind's history is greater and older than previously believed. He's still paying for that, I'm sure. Tonight, we will discuss his newest books, Forgotten Civilization, The Role of Solar Outbursts in Our Past and Future, and Origins of the Sphinx, Celestial Guardian of the Pre-Pharaonic Civilization, co-authored with the one and only Robert Bauval. We're going to have Robert on the show, Robert Bauval, in about 2 weeks, everybody, so get ready for that. And the possibility of a 4th Black Pyramid and a 2nd Sphinx and other stuff on the Giza Plateau. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black the one and only and our good friend, Dr. Robert Schoch. Dr. Schoch, good evening. How are you, my friend?
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Oh, man, it's always great to hear your voice, man.
Oh, thank you.
You know, today, I'm going to start off with this. It's really funny. One of the pictures that you have, you've seen it many times. It's you with the Sphinx in the background, right, with the face.
Right.
And
yeah.
I swear, Robert, it looks like you're the face on the Sphinx. If you squint, if you squint just a little bit, it's not the headdress; it's the flowing locks now on the Sphinx. and you have to.
There you go.
Yeah, you go and take a look, and just let your imagination go just a little bit. But it was just really funny how it hit me. So, how are you? How's Katie? Have you guys been around the world? Are you back? Are you teaching?
Yeah,
are you teaching?
We've been traveling, but we're back. Katie and I are both very well, thank you.
Are you teaching? Are you back in school?
I'm back in teaching. Yeah, exactly. It's the new semester started in September, and it's been really busy ever since. I want to say it seems like 2 days ago, but I realize we're end of October already.
Do your students, I have to ask you this, I don't know if I ever have, do your students know that you're a rock star in our world? Do they have any idea about your alternative?
Some of them are more tuned into that than others. It's interesting. Even this semester, I had a couple come up and ask me if I was the one, involved with the Sphinx, that type of thing.
Right. Oh, so they are aware. They're hip.
Yeah, some of them are aware. And then what's even just as interesting, perhaps, is, I think it was even this semester that one of them told me, her mother or something is reading one of my books. So she was aware of me that way, and I said, "Well, you should read it too."
Yeah, that kind of hurts. Actually, that's actually a little painful.
I don't think it was meant the wrong way, but yeah. But the problem is that generation, and I'm talking undergraduates, so they're late teens, early 20s. They do not read books the way our generation does.
Yeah, right.
I didn't want to say did. I want to say does.
Yeah, does. So do you I'm not saying do you does. do you do the ebook and make sure that everything is online, because that's the way this generation runs these days?
Yes, that's the way the generation goes. And so both Forgotten Civilization and Origins of the Sphinx can be read via ebook. I've never read them via ebook. I don't have copies of them via ebook, but they can be ordered through Amazon or whatever as ebooks. Interestingly, I've talked to my students about this, and they load all the ebooks onto their readers or devices or phones or whatever. But a number of them have told me that when they really like a book, they get the hard copy as well.
Well, I have the analog version of Origins of the Sphinx right here. I'm holding it up.
That's the one you flip through with your thumbs?
Old school. And
old school.
Yeah, I'm holding it up to the video cameras here in the studio for everybody out there that's watching. And what's really cool about the book, which you don't see often enough, you've got a really cool color section in the middle with glossy photographs.
Really cool. I have to give credit here. You know why we have a really cool color section in the middle with glossy photographs? Because Katie, and for those that don't know, Katie is my wife. You know that.
Yes.
Katie designed that.
It's just incredible, and it is.
So thank you. I'll pass it on to her.
The book is an incredible read, and of course, Robert Bauval. Now, before we move on. Last year, 6 months ago, we had just an amazing panel together over at Contact in the Desert. And on that panel was Graham Hancock, of course, Robert Bauval, yourself, Andrew Collins, doctors JJ, the Hertogs were there.
The Hertogs, yeah.
And I think Carl Auerberger, of course, right? Okay,
that's right, yeah.
But John Anthony West was not there, and we had a great tribute for him that night. We had the empty chair, set aside for him. He has done every Contact in the Desert with me, and so forth, but he was not there. And when you have, it was weird, because when you have Bauval, Hancock, and you, and of course John Anthony West, the four of you tipped this community upside down. You guys did that, and you've been working together, but he was not there.
I know. We were missing one of the horsemen, because I think we've been called the Four Horsemen.
That's right.
And it was very sad. It's very sad that he couldn't be there. But I think your community, I think your listeners, I can imagine that most of them know he's battling stage 4 cancer. He's in very, very serious shape.
Have you spoken to Jaws?
I've spoken to him within the last, I want to say 2 weeks or so, because I don't want to disturb him too much or bug him too much, but we keep in contact, and he is stable. That's the way I'll put it. We hope for the best, obviously, but he's very weak. I mean, this is serious stuff. He's fighting.
Do you think, and I hope that he does, do you think he is aware of the support that he has in our community and how much we care about?
I'm absolutely certain. Absolutely.
How long did you talk to him? And can you share anything with us? Can you share us a Jawism?
Jawism? No. Well, honestly, no, because the last conversation was not very long. He was not his perky self. It was still him. And it was more that he was doing, he's fighting this battle. He is determined to get better. He's determined to go back to Egypt at some point. But he was very weak, and we actually had to end it because he had to get some sleep.
Well, that's a jawism right there, because
that's jawism right there.
You can't get him off the phone. You can't get him off the phone. You can't.
No, you can't normally get him off the phone. But something else in this, I guess, ties in with jawisms. As I've known him, I don't know how long.
91. Yeah.
Well, close to 30 years.
Right.
He and I have known each other. And he can be brutally honest, and he's very straightforward. And he was very straightforward about this, that, he is fighting something very serious, and it's not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, for somebody, and this is the thing, for him to say that he needs his rest, because
exactly.
let me tell you something about Jaws, something that but the audience may not. He's come up to me at 10 o'clock at night, right, face to face, going, all right, let's go out for dinner and drinks.
Yes, exactly.
Normally somebody at his age is in bed already, and and so for him to say he needs his rest, you know what? He needs his rest, and good for him.
He needs his rest, exactly, and you're not going to deny him that when he says that, because he's not someone that says something like that lightly. He doesn't say that as an excuse, but he's never been that way. But he's pushing on. I give him a lot of credit, and hopefully he will be able to get back, because he's still got a lot he wants to do as far as writing, things that he wants to do, as far as his own work, a number of things that he and I would like to do together, as far as books and papers, that type of thing. So.
Now
he always. I'm sure you heard this. He would always talk about how he had to live to at least 120.
Yes.
So he's still working toward that.
I remember him telling, when he tells stories about Ibiza, and he laughs about it like Ibiza almost did him in, right? Right. And here we are in 2017, man, and we're still fighting the good fight with him.
Exactly. Because that was back in the 50s.
Back in the 50s, and for Jaws to say Ibiza almost did me in, it just makes you. It's like the scariest thing ever. So now let's turn back the clocks a little bit before we move forward. When Charlton Heston and you and Jaws and that thing aired in the Emmys and the back.
That's 1993 for those that don't know.
Right, 1993.
Mystery of the Sphinx.
So with all of the and the backlash and the press and the torment and the positivity, you had everything going on at the same time, right? Our community's propping you up. The academia is pushing you down. You guys are fighting the good fight. But now, do you feel here in 2017 going into 2018, do you feel vindicated? Do you feel like that not only you were on the right side, but you were right?
Oh, absolutely. I personally feel that way. Now, do all of my academic colleagues feel that way? Many of them are still trying to fight tooth and nail, as they say, against it. I mean, the old ways die hard. So some of them still have vested interest. But personally, I feel very, very vindicated. I am more confident. I've said this a number of times when people ask me similar questions. I feel more confident now than I ever have as far as the age of the Sphinx, pushing back the origins of civilization, pushing back, there was an earlier, I call it cycle of civilization before the end of the last ice age, going back to at least 10,500 BC.
Right.
I back in the early 90s, I was confident with my research. I wouldn't have gone out on a limb if I didn't think the data was good. But now we have so much more, including Göbekli Tepe, of course.
Right.
But even if we did not have Göbekli Tepe, just the evidence on the Giza plateau itself and how it all fits together, which of course is what Bauval and I put together in Origins of the Sphinx. I mean, it's such a strong case in my assessment. You can't refute it. It has not been refuted. I say that because I look at all the supposed refutations that have been thrown at me. I look at them carefully. I look at them critically. I went through a phase for a number of years in the 1990s where I would stay awake at night thinking, what mistake might I have made? What might I have overlooked? What paper might come my way the next morning, refuting me, and I wouldn't be able to deny the refutation. But I'm well past that now because I think I've heard all the arguments, all the potential arguments. And
well, I think there's two waves that are going on here, two different fronts that are supporting you right now. There are going to be those that are going to stay against you just because it's like policy. So I understand.
Oh, well, it's policy. They're going to stay that way until they die.
Right. So
they can't do anything otherwise because if they do anything otherwise, they lose so much face. They lose so much reputation. You don't stake your career on something and then all of a sudden at the end of your career say, well, too bad. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Schoch is right.
Right.
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I mean, I know academia as well, if not better than anyone.
Because you are, you work with the man. You really do. You have to look at it that way. So but I think there's two things that are propping you up right now. One is the geology and the scientific, the scientific knowledge of rainfall in Egypt and the Sahara and Giza. So that part of it is solidifying itself. But the other part, which I think is equally as dynamic, is the cosmology, the astrology part of it, where when Robert first brought that out, Bauval, it seemed like a stretch. But today, science and astrology and astronomy is now supporting this more and more, and the two of them are starting to merge. And it's solidifying the case.
Exactly. And in fact, that is one of the points of Origins of the Sphinx, that these two do go together hand in hand. And I think Robert Bauval, you'll talk to him in a couple of weeks, he would be, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's the first to admit that if you have only the archaeoastronomy, you don't know if that's simply pointing back to a prior time, like the sign that says George Washington slept here, but the sign is 200 years later. You don't know if it's pointing back to a period thousands of years later, or if there's really physical remains going back to that period. With the geology, we know it's real physical remains.
And the two are converging. And they're
exactly. They're converging. One is telling you something, the other one is telling you something and saying, this is it. This is really it physically.
Now,
it's not just a bunch of signs saying, well, our history goes back to that period.
Now, these cosmic events, I want to visit this before we get to the top of the hour. We have not only your stuff, but of course, Randall Carlson and some of the things that Hancock is starting to point out. And then you have Göbekli Tepe. It seems like we cannot run away and hide from this number, 10,500 BC. Right? It's everywhere.
Well, yeah, 10,000, that's a round number. I would actually round it for completeness sake to 10,000, or just for simplicity's sake.
Okay.
10,000, 10,500. What we're really talking about is the last, this is me speaking as a geologist and also based on my research, what we're really talking about is the last millennium of the end of the last ice age. The last ice age ending 9,700 BC and the millennium before that. So say 10,500 to 9,700 BC.
This number is everywhere. And
it's coming up everywhere, but this is the end of the last ice age. This seems to be a pinnacle, if you would, of an earlier civilization that was decimated in 9,700 BC.
And Plato, I find this really strange. Graham brought this up, and when he brought it up, it was already on my mind, and I think a lot of others too. When Plato started when he wrote, right, and he's talking about 9,000 years before, and then that lands right back on this date, and of course he's bringing up the A word.
Plato is really important because Plato, if you take him literally, comes in about 9,600 BC. I'm talking 9,700 BC.
Not an accident.
So it's not an accident. It's not an accident at all. That's why I say in round numbers we're talking 10,000 BC, and things are converging around that date.
And we can't escape it, right? And
no, exactly.
We have the cosmology part and the cataclysm part, and we have the Great Flood part, and we have all of those stories of mythology. We have all of that comes into play. But what I think is also most important here is Göbekli Tepe now lands on that, and it's just like we can't. We have to stop at some point and go, okay, there is something going on, and and we have the A word. Right?
Yeah. Well, I will say it now. When I started this business, John Anthony West was so frustrated with me because I would not say the A word out loud. I would not say it even in private out loud because it's so volatile among academics.
Completely taboo.
Completely taboo. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
your audience knows what the A word is, I hope.
So, are you? And it's not aliens, everybody. Just so
no,
you know.
It's not.
Can you say the A word right now?
I can say the A word now. Do you want me to say the A word?
Come out of the closet.
Come out of the closet and say the A word.
Do it.
Atlantis.
Oh, man.
Now, if you had me on a couple of decades ago, I would not have done that.
Seriously, you wouldn't have?
Seriously. Because there was a time, and actually I think academia collectively has moved on now, but there was a time that if you said the A word, if you said Atlantis, and you spoke about Atlantis seriously, other than in the context of being a philosopher who obviously dismissed it as just a myth that was trying to tell, truisms or political theory, but you would never believe it as being anything real. Other than that context, if you were in academia, so if you were a scientist, if you were an anthropologist, an archaeologist, if you said the A word, Atlantis, people would just dismiss you.
Kiss of death. Career kiss of death.
Kiss of death. And so, seriously, in the early 90s, we're walking around the plateau. John Anthony West was very much into the concept of Atlantis, not as a single place, but as the concept that there was advanced civilization at a remote period of time. That's how he would use the term if you read his books. And he was so frustrated that I would not say it. I would not talk about that.
Now, I want to talk about some cosmic events and your previous book before this one with Bauval, and set this up. I want to talk about it a little bit after the break because we have other things that are quite important that we're going to be discussing tonight. But there's also, and I want you to tell me about some of the evidence that you have found. Have you things like maybe liquefied limestone or other atomical changes that have happened? What have you found?
Well, it's very interesting. We're talking about the Giza Plateau. We have now evidence. I'm convinced that we have evidence on the Giza Plateau of essentially a plasma strike, a solar outburst strike. And you use the term liquefied limestone. That's a good way to put it. Basically, what happens is that it hits, and you can think of it as sort of being a huge thunderbolt, but not thunder in the sense of atmospheric thunder, but coming from a solar outburst. And we can talk about this more as the show goes on. This, I am absolutely convinced, and this is what I talk about in Forgotten Civilization, that book, The Role of Solar Outbursts in Our Past and Future, that it was a solar outburst that ended the last ice age in 9700 BC, snapped us out of it, changed climatic patterns and temperatures almost instantaneously. I now am convinced that we have evidence right on the Giza Plateau where one of these hit 12,000 years ago, and it basically burnt and liquefied, melted part of the limestone there, and then it recongealed. It's essentially a form of vitrification, and you can see this to this day. It's very close to the second pyramid and the so-called mortuary temple of the second pyramid, and it's really interesting that you can go to the museum in Cairo, the Egyptian Museum. They have what they call the inventory stela, which has been very controversial among Egyptologists for a very long time because it talks about the Sphinx preceding the Great Pyramid, coming before the Great Pyramid, coming before Khufu, the reputed builder of the Great Pyramid, and furthermore, it talks about the Sphinx being, quote, struck by lightning and knocking a piece off of it.
Now, what are we talking about surface temperatures when
when it hits? We're talking a couple of thousand to several thousand degrees Celsius, and we're talking atmospheric pressures where it hits. Which is a localized area, sort of like a tornado hitting.
Right.
So you're talking several thousand, potentially several thousand degrees Celsius, and atmospheric pressures of 50,000 to 70,000 or so atmospheric pressure.
Now, how long does this last?
Well, the actual strike is going to be very quick, just like atmospheric lightning strike.
Right.
But it's going to continue, sort of like a tornado touching down, that type of thing, over a period of time. Probably would come in waves of, my guess is, several days to a couple of weeks, then it would back off, then you'd probably have more again, that type of thing.
And we've got about one more minute before the break. So when this happens, Dr. Schoch, just so I'm clear, what happens to life, mammals, humans?
Well, it destroys the magnetosphere, destroys the parts of the stratosphere, etc. You have increased radiation levels. You have surface incineration in some places. You set forest fires where there's flammable, forest and other material.
Right.
You melt glaciers. You melt bodies of water. You put incredible amounts of moisture into the atmosphere that comes down as torrential rains, precipitation, torrential rains, which, look at the Sphinx, eroded by torrential rains. You have flooding, both on land and rising sea levels. I mean, it's quite devastating. It sets off earthquakes because of pressure that are released as you melt glaciers. Also, there's actually lots of evidence now that solar activity and earthquake activity correlate with each other. So, I mean, we've been absolutely devastating on the surface of the Earth. And large mammals would tend to go extinct, would tend to die off, and this is exactly what we see at the end of the last ice age. Humans are large mammals, but some of us escaped into caves underground.
We'll take a quick break right here. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch. It is going to be a complete Giza evening. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. More with Dr. Schoch right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Gobekli Tepe.
You're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Gobekli Tepe. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch. And I just have to say this to the audience. I enjoy when he's on the show with us because it is just a dynamic, open-ended conversation that tends to go anywhere and everywhere. And that's the best part, Dr. Schoch. I keep calling you Dr. Schoch, Robert.
Either way, it's fine.
What do your students call you?
They call me Dr. Schoch.
And
then if I tell them I'm old-fashioned this way. I don't think young undergraduates should be calling me by my first name. So I tell them Dr. Schoch is good, and if they want to be less formal, then just Schoch.
Well, or get to your senior year, then you can call me Bobby. Right?
Never. They do that, they fail.
With all of your knowledge,
no, I wouldn't be vindictive like that.
No, I know.
But they know not to. They would not dare.
F, big red one. With all of your knowledge of cataclysms and the cosmology and cosmic events, and with all of your knowledge of this, do you and Katie prep? Do you guys have a prepper's kit?
No. We're even beyond that. I hate to say it this way. We think that when it's going to, at least I'll speak for myself, when it happens, it is going to be so serious, it's going to be so bad. For instance, a major solar outburst is just going to knock out grid systems, communication. We live in Boston. You're going to have you've got me off on a tangent now, and I don't want to sound the wrong way. It's a scaremonger or fearmonger,
right?
Or prophesizing gloom and doom. But honestly, a decent solar event, solar outburst, and it doesn't need to be as big as what happened at the end of the last ice age. It could be as big as the Carrington event, which was in 1859, so not that long ago, which was very minor astrophysically.
Right.
There would be, for instance, an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that would go with it, that would knock out something that we have, all of us tend to have now, which is cars, which are really computers on wheels. So it would destroy that. You probably wouldn't be able to start your car to get to your hideout if you prepped that way. it's going to be a very bleak situation. So I would say the way that we prep is really mental attitude, trying to, make connections with other people. It's not so much stockpiling food and water, that type of thing. We have a little bit, but that's only going to last so long.
Yeah, well, you have to do something. There's no doubt.
Yeah, something. But I'm not big into, having, and it doesn't work in a city anyway, having a huge stockpile of food and water. And, I know some people have guns to shoot off the people that are going to try to steal it from them.
Right.
And then I watch some people, and I've talked to people, and they've got all these businesses of, they're going to know how to live off the land and the woods, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that might all be destroyed.
And it's not fear. You see, this is what I want to make clear to everybody. It's not about fear. It could be anything. These hurricanes that we just had, right?
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Could be anything. There's many different things it could be, and you don't really know what it's going to be in that sense. So there's different preparations you would have to make for different things. But I think what we really have to worry about is something knocking out our grid system.
Yeah, that scares me.
And if our grid system goes down, I'm talking major grid system going down, what is going to happen, among other things, and I know you and I have maybe talked about this, we're going to have nuclear power plants that aren't being fed electricity, and it's ironic because they make electricity, but they need to be maintained on the grid system for their cooling systems, et cetera, and we're going to have Fukushima-type situations releasing radiation, and no amount of prepping is really going to prepare you for that.
I wanted to ask you a couple.
So I'm just giving one bad case scenario.
Well,
Again,
yeah.
Don't want to predict this, but it could realistically happen.
In 1859, which they probably didn't understand completely what was going on, but
no, they did not.
All of the wire transmission, anything that was already installed, what little infrastructure was there, it went up in flames.
It went up in flames, literally, because you've got these wires which act as huge antenna. They carry the load of the incoming energy that's coming from an outburst like that, basically electrical plasma outbursts, coronal mass ejections, etc. Not to get into all the technical details, it overloaded them. Transmission lines, this is for the telegraph back then, the telegraph stations literally went up in flames, burnt down, etc., etc. And that was a very robust system. Ours is much more vulnerable. If you think of all the miniaturization that we have in our computers, et cetera, that makes them much more vulnerable. Like I said, an EMP that would be associated with a decent-sized solar outburst is just going to knock out computers left and right, including those in cars. So I know some people, they have their cabin in the woods stockpiled, et cetera, and they think they're going to jump into their car and drive there. Well, first, if anyone can drive, the highways are going to be parking lots. But secondly, most cars won't work.
Bicycles.
Yeah,
bicycles.
Like China.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's.
So anyway, we take all this stuff seriously, but I hate to say, we hope for the best, and I just maybe it's just not in my genes to be a big prepper. In a physical sense versus mental.
Right.
Trying to prepare for it mentally and think through what would I do, how do I keep calm, and I don't want to sound the wrong way, but there is a spiritual aspect to this.
Completely.
Yeah. And that's probably the most important aspect, in my opinion.
You said the right word there. Go hang out with friends, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Go mend those bridges that you burnt.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to turn to Giza and talk about a couple of things really quick. There were about 3 or 4 things that popped up on Twitter right back to back. So I'm going to bang these out for the Twitter audience really quick. What's the hole on the top of the Sphinx? What does that lead to?
It probably leads to absolutely nothing. It's filled in, to the best of my knowledge now, with cement, that type of thing. And we speculate, when I say we, Robert Bauval and I, and this is one of his sections of the book, that it was probably a hole that was used in ancient times. And when I say ancient times, it's not clear how far back in ancient times, because remember, we could be talking 4,000 years ago versus 12,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. So probably more recent ancient times, which is still thousands of years ago. It was probably a hole, we speculate, that was used for various headdresses that were used to adorn the Sphinx, placed on the Sphinx.
Right.
There is, to this day, in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, for instance, part of a head of a snake that at one point was on the Sphinx, or is believed to have been on the Sphinx. But the Sphinx was heavily modified since its origins about 12,000 plus years ago. The head has been recarved. In my assessment, so this is me now speaking personally, I think that hole is a later addition used to hold various headdresses that were placed on the Sphinx, probably since it was recarved into a human head. That's my best estimate of it. I don't think it goes down into any kind of deep tunnel or chamber. Can't absolutely preclude that possibility, but I don't see evidence for that either.
With all of the reconstruction that has gone on with the Sphinx, and it's heavy. I mean, it's a lot. And I think they jumped ahead. They shouldn't have done it, but they've done it.
Are you talking modern or ancient or both?
Well, actually, we can go with both, but I'm going to go with the modern for now. But even with the ancient reconstruction, they've hidden a lot of the erosion evidence. Do you think that?
Absolutely. And it's very interesting. Since I've been working on this, that a lot has been hidden since I started. In fact, some of the best evidence, some of the huge fissures and whatnot on the south wall of the Sphinx enclosure, I've been amazed in the last couple of years when I've been back to Egypt to look at it and review the evidence. They've closed some of it in. They've covered it over, cemented it in, and destroyed evidence.
And what about...
Now, I'm not accusing them of doing that purposefully, destroy evidence. Maybe they just think they're beautifying it or who knows what, but yeah.
Now, what about evidence of something going on underneath the Sphinx? And I know that you've been looking at this angle for a while.
Yeah.
Not only Edgar Cayce, but something else maybe besides Edgar, a library, knowledge, but tunnels in general.
Yeah, there's definitely something under the left paw of the Sphinx. That's a paw on the right side when you face the Sphinx. We found that, Thomas DeBecke and I found that in the early 1990s using seismic. We found a tunnel also the same way using low-level seismic. When I say low-level, low-energy seismic. And that sort of extends the length of the body of the Sphinx. And I have nice diagrams of this in Origins of the Sphinx. So not to plug the book, but to plug the information. People can get a copy and look at the diagrams for this. So that goes through the body of the Sphinx, or along the body of the Sphinx, more or less. And there's another cavity in the back that we found, which was fairly well known because Hawass had been in it and whatnot. Mm-hmm. He has denied the one that's in the front under the left paw. That's the one that effectively Edgar Cayce predicted. And then this ties in a new article just out this summer by Manu Saifzadeh, myself, and Robert Bauval talks about hieroglyphic title that actually refers to the Sphinx, we believe, based on our interpretation of it, refers to the Sphinx and refers to the Sphinx as a female lioness who is guarding a chamber underneath her, which again would tie in with this concept of a chamber under the Sphinx. We interpret the hieroglyphics to say there was this female lioness, Mehet, what is her name, who goes back to pre-dynastic, earliest dynastic, and arguably pre-dynastic times. It's just that we don't have any earlier inscriptions, so it goes back as far as inscriptions go.
Right.
And guards an archive, literally a chamber, an archive under the Sphinx. So this is now hieroglyphic evidence in the Egyptologist's own turf, if you would, that argues for the same thing that I've been arguing geologically, that, of course, my academic colleagues, and go back to things I would not talk about 20, 25 years ago. I wouldn't be talking about Edgar Cayce back then.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, he predicted there was an archive there, something under the chamber. So we have all these different lines of evidence pointing to the same thing. That it is there, and I'm absolutely certain it's there based on the physical evidence of the seismic work we did, plus other people have done geophysical evidence and have found indications of a cavity or chamber at the same spot. Now, just to finish the thought, Lehner and Hawass, Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass, have supposedly drilled and not found anything, but I'm absolutely convinced that they angled the drills such that they would purposefully miss any chamber.
Jay Widener, last time he was on the show, said he was in the enclosure, right, and he's by himself. Mm-hmm. And he avoids the guards that he was down there with, right? But just a few people down there. He walks around to the back by the tail, and he finds a piece of plywood, and he lifts it up and looks in, and it's a tunnel with a ladder going down into the darkness. And then the guards came around and said, "Hey!" And he dropped the plywood and went back to him. But he saw that with his. Where is? Oh
yeah, I've seen that. That's at the rear of the Sphinx.
Yes.
It's the left rear of the Sphinx.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it, and I've surreptitiously stuck my head in as far as I could, so to speak. And you couldn't see much, but we found that seismically. We did not know about it at the time. It has been demonstrated now that our seismic was good, that we picked up that cavity. I don't know exactly what is in it. I've not been allowed to go into it. Honestly, I think it's probably late period, Greco-Roman or maybe 26th dynasty. But that's just from a sense of how it looked like it was carved.
Right.
But the thing is, and should I go ahead and say things on the air?
Yeah, let's do it.
One could go in there conceivably, and from that vantage, which is now, if you're in there hidden, you could potentially drill or go toward the front and access chambers like the one under the paw.
Well, but
I have no evidence that anyone's actually done that, and it would not. Technologically, the technology to do that exists, but you would have to bring it in, and you would have to do that surreptitiously if someone were to do that without letting everyone else know. And you're not going to do that unless you're well seated with the Egyptian authorities, or you are the Egyptian authorities.
Well, now that Hawass is out of the way, do you think that there's opportunity now to finally start to explore?
Absolutely. It's just going to take money.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
it always
I have spoken, I have spoken with Egyptian authorities, very specifically John Anthony West and I have, when he was this was the summer of 2016 before he found out about his illness. It must have been growing at the time, but he was unaware of it. We have met with Egyptian authorities. We've actually gotten very positive responses from them, and I have all the official forms that need to be filled out, et cetera, but the equipment to bring in to do this is quite costly. Geophysical equipment is quite costly, and you need money up front. They do not want to hear that you're going to raise this with crowdsourcing or that type of thing. part of the application, you actually need to show you have the money. So I am actually pleading, if there's someone out there in the audience that could put up money to do this, I think we could make real progress.
Why won't an American university? It seems to me, Dr. Schoch, that Germany or France, or there are other countries that are willing to, go in and explore not only Giza but across the Sahara and look for lots of evidence. But I don't see that happening with the United States. Wow.
No, well, the United States, I mean, there's a couple of things. Funding gets scarcer and scarcer, it seems, in general. It tends to be for other things than, frills like Giza or archaeology. And then there's a whole problem that we've been fighting for decades, which this is non-conventional. This stands to upturn people's apple carts, to go against what their beliefs are. What if we go into the chamber and we find records from Atlantis, basically? That's going to make some people very happy, but it's going to make a lot of other people really upset.
Isn't that?
So I'll give you an example. There's the whole issue of I'm trying to remember the details now. There was a bunch of hubbub about the Valley of the Kings, and if there might be, I think it was Nefertiti's. Don't quote me on this, but Nefertiti's tomb might be off of Tutankhamun's.
Yeah, behind the south wall. Yes.
Yeah, behind the south wall. I'm trying to remember the details now. And look at how controversial that was and how difficult that was to get permission, et cetera, et cetera. And then eventually they got permission, or they did some geophysics, and they decided, there might be a cavity there, but it's not a chamber. And I was actually talking to Egyptologists on the ground in Egypt about, what's the distinction you're making? They're saying, it wasn't regular enough. The walls weren't, at right angles as far as they could tell. And it's like the geophysical techniques they were using wouldn't distinguish that.
And so that's their reason for doing nothing.
Yeah. So they've actually got evidence there's something there, just like we have with the Sphinx. Yet they won't do anything, and it's, to me, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this on the air, but to me, they're just looking for rationale, ways to figure out why they don't do something.
It goes with everything when it comes to Giza. We understand that the Sphinx was buried up to its neck at one point in sand, right? Yeah. And nobody knew anything. So the rest of the plateau and everything going west and south and north of Giza, for that matter, there could be countless things there.
There could be countless things, and in fact, there were countless things going east of the Sphinx. So people who have been there, they may be familiar, they should be familiar if they've been there, and if not, at least read Origins of the Sphinx, and you'll see lots of photos of, for instance, the Sphinx Temple. The Sphinx Temple in front of the Sphinx, the Valley Temple just to the south and east of the Sphinx. Those were totally covered with sand. No one knew they were there for literally a couple thousand years. The Romans weren't aware of them because they were covered over with sand. They were only excavated initially in the late 19th century, parts of them, and fully excavated in the 20th century.
What kind of money?
That's the example right there of things that we didn't know about, or Egyptologists did not know about until a very recent period of time.
What kind of money are we talking about here that you would need to raise?
That I need?
Yes.
Yes, because, see, you have to get permissions, you have to get concessions, as they call it. I also have to have money to get the equipment over there. There's lots of fees you have to pay. There's lots of equipment. You need to get certain technicians, blah, blah, blah. So, talking in the round ballpark, $1 million or $2 million to get things started.
$1 million or $2 million?
Yeah,
okay.
I could probably do quite a bit with $2 million.
You can get it done with $2 million. Okay, well...
yeah, no, and I mean, on the one hand, it sounds like a lot. On the other hand, given what could be accomplished here and what could be discovered, and if you know what, this type of equipment rents for, et cetera, and costs to deal with, we're not talking a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money for me personally, but there are people out there that... it's all one's perspective.
Yep, and they're listening right now. That's why
I would love to have someone like that, because I think that if, with my connections and my academic credentials, I'm at Boston University. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, even privately. As of earlier this year, I was able to found at Boston University within my college what's known as the Institute for the Study of the Origins of Civilization, ISOC, and I talk about it a little bit on my website if people want to go there, www.robertschoch.com. But this is an institute devoted just to these types of topics now within Boston University, which is a wonderful thing to use as part of leverage when applying, for instance, to the Egyptian authorities, because the academic credentials are important. So between that, money to get the equipment, money to pay the fees for the concessions, when you do something like this, you have to hire Egyptians to oversee things,
sure.
Guards and inspectors, that type of thing. You're required to involve Egyptians, graduate students, so you have to pay their fees, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot involved here. That's where there's a lot of different places the money has to go.
Well, this is what...
I'm not talking any kind of salary, I just want to make it clear. I'm not talking paying myself a cent.
Right. Right. Well,
I just want to see the research get done.
Well, this is, okay. So if we're going to go ahead and see what we can do on our end. But if we pull it off, you have to do one thing. You have to wear a Fade to Black T-shirt on video. That's all. That's all you have to do.
That's fair enough.
Fair enough. Fade to Black hat.
I think that's fair enough. Yeah.
Let's take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the fourth pyramid that is quite possibly out there. Historically is documented. We'll talk about all of that. And also the possibility of a second Sphinx and other things on the Giza Plateau. Our guest tonight, the one and only Dr. Robert Schoch. This is Fade to Black. Robert, you stay right there now.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back right after this. This is Fade to Black.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. And last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch. The questions in Twitter are lining up. We're going to get to some of those in just a second. But I want to start to discuss the fourth pyramid on the Giza Plateau. By some reports now, it's called the Black Pyramid. Now, Dr. Schoch, Frederick Norden, a Danish explorer who was meticulous in his illustrations, in his expedition, in his notes. I mean, down to the last detail. And here is a guy that was sent to go and explore up and down the Nile, and he clearly states that not only was there a fourth pyramid, but he describes it. And the capstone, he said, was a cube, was square on the top. Now, he's not going to make these kind of mistakes, right? When you read the historical accounts of this, what do you make of it?
I think there's three possibilities. And I was thinking about this, and you and I have discussed it a little bit before. I think there's three possibilities. One is, and this ties in with just what we were talking about, that there could be a fourth pyramid. Now, we're not talking, I want to be very clear, at least this is my assessment, we're not talking a huge pyramid. We're not talking a big pyramid. We're probably talking at the very high end, the largest possibility, something considerably smaller than the Menkaure pyramid. So those that are not familiar with the Giza Plateau, they should know that the three major pyramids are the Great Pyramid, the Khufu Pyramid, so-called Khufu Pyramid, the second pyramid, our Khafre Pyramid. They're almost the same size. Then there's the Menkaure Pyramid, the third pyramid, which is considerably smaller. This, quote, fourth pyramid was probably smaller still, whatever he's referring to. So I would say the three possibilities, as I see it, are one, that yes, it's there. It was maybe exposed when he was there, but it may be covered up with sand at this point. We were just talking about how the Great Pyramid, I'm sorry, not the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx Temple, the Valley Temple, etc., were completely covered with sand until the 19th century. So he wouldn't have seen those. The Great Pyramid, the base of the Great Pyramid, was not exposed until well into the late 19th, early 20th century because it was covered by sand. My point is that sand blows around the Giza Plateau. If the Sphinx is not kept clear to this day, within 20 to 30 years, the Sphinx enclosure will fill with sand. It will cover the body of the Sphinx up to the neck. Now, sand blows around, and I'm talking geologically. It could be that there was some smaller pyramid uncovered at that time, which since then has been covered essentially with sand or a sand dune. So I think that's one possibility. Another possibility is he was there in 1737.
Right.
So close to 300 years ago. A lot has happened in those 300 years. We have very good documentation that even as late as the 18th century, the Sphinx, and even later, but especially as late as the 18th century, the Sphinx was still being used as an open-air quarry. So throughout medieval times, early Muslim times, the classic Arab times, the Sphinx, the pyramids, all of Giza was used as an open-air quarry. It was much easier to collect blocks from Giza and cart them over and build mosques and bridges and that type of thing. So it's possible, again, I'm speculating, but it's possible that it was there and it was quarried away since he was there. And maybe we find the remains, that type of thing of it. The third possibility, which is a standard archaeological explanation among the conventional archaeologists, is that he was, what he called the fourth pyramid was simply the best preserved or the tallest of what are known as the satellite pyramids of Menkaure, satellite pyramids to the third pyramid. And there is one that's a little bit taller than the others, which even in 19th century photographs sometimes shows up from a certain perspective. It looks like a, quote, fourth pyramid, as if there's three major ones and then the smaller one. So I think those are the three major possibilities as to what might be going on. I would like to think that it's there, but it's been covered by sand since he was there.
And the other...
Which I think geologically is quite possible.
Well, his when you look at the map now that he drew, the scaling of it is obviously off, with the mountains in the background.
Exactly. And I also want to remind everyone that he was there in 1737, 1738. He died in, I looked this up just to have it on, readily available. He died in 1742. His work is not published for another 15 years. And so people took his sketches, drawings, turned it into engravings, etchings. And so one could also argue is, how accurate were there things lost as they were transcribed, some details. And some proportions.
Yeah, because that fourth pyramid, it could be 10 miles off into the desert.
Yeah, it could be pretty far from where some people are thinking.
Now, when you, as a geologist, and you've been all over the Giza Plateau, how we are, it's deceiving because we're looking at it today where so much sand has been removed.
Exactly.
Right? How deep is the sand going out to the desert before you get to bedrock? What do we talk? Hundreds of feet?
Well, it depends on where you are, and I can't really answer that absolutely definitively. But I'll give you an example. When we did this seismically, we ran some lines across the sand from in front of the Sphinx Temple going east into the little village there.
Right.
And when we did that, everyone thought bedrock was just, a few meters below the sand. We found places where you're talking 10, 15 meters before you hit bedrock.
Right.
And that was a place where people had no clue that it was so deep. So when you start talking about, say, the western end of the plateau, it could be certainly tens of meters, so 30, 40, 50 feet, maybe even considerably more. I mean, I'm just speculating now. Something you have to realize geologically is that the Giza Plateau is a plateau. It's a fault-laden or a fault frame. What I mean by that is geologically there's faults on the four sides, so it's uplifted relative to the bedrock around it, which means there could be quite a bit of sand before you hit bedrock once you are past the scarp of the plateau.
Anything could be down there.
Oh, there could be lots of things down there. And there's been speculation, of course, about the fourth pyramid. There's speculation, which I think you said you wanted to get into, about a second sphinx. There could be a lot of other stuff, too. Stuff going back to Atlantis, right?
I didn't want to go to the A word, but
I figured I might as well if I'm coming out.
Are we going to get two tonight? You're going to come out twice?
No, we've had enough so far. We've had coming out.
It's so funny. I think back at the at our little panel that we did, and you came out 6 times. And and each time the audience got louder and louder, and that's part of. There was 2,500 people sitting in front of us that night, and they were encouraging you. So it was so funny. I couldn't believe we got to number 6. But there are historical references to the second Sphinx, just like there are to this fourth pyramid. This is not speculation.
No, there are definitely references. The question is, what are the references to? What is the second Sphinx? What could it be referring to? And, there's been thoughts. Again, I was thinking about this, and I would say there are 5 basic thoughts as to where the second Sphinx could be, if there's a second Sphinx. So should I enumerate those?
Yes, let's go. Let's do it.
Well, okay, there are basically 5 directions, if you would. There's some speculation, and I've spoken with Egyptologists on the ground about this. There's some speculation that there could be a second Sphinx very close to the current Sphinx that we know, but facing west, and that could be to the south, sort of to the southwest of the Sphinx. One Egyptologist I know, this is an Egyptian Egyptologist, showed Katie and I at one point what he thought was a second Sphinx, which is now highly, highly eroded and has been carved up into tombs and that type of thing. To be honest, we did not find it convincing whatsoever. We felt like he was showing us from one angle. If you used a lot of imagination, you could make it look like a Sphinx facing west, but we did not find it convincing at all. So I don't want to totally dismiss him. I'm not even going to mention his name, but I did not find that convincing. Similarly, a fellow who I've never actually met, but know his work, and he is, again, an Egyptian by the name, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Basama el-Shamama. He wrote a book literally called Quest for the Truth, the Second Sphinx, and this came out in 2003, and it was published I'm looking at a copy of it, which I bought in Egypt. It was actually published in Cairo, so it's a fairly obscure book, probably in American circles, and he talks about second Sphinx the same way and places it near the current Sphinx, but thinks it's been recarved and ruinous, that type of thing. Some people have suggested that there's a second Sphinx not south or southwest of the current Sphinx, but north of the Sphinx on I think of JFK. Remember JFK and the grassy knoll?
Right.
Well, there's a non-grassy knoll basically to the north of the Sphinx, which I'm not convinced at all that there's a Sphinx there. I think it is primarily bedrock. Some people say, oh, there's sand there, and if you dig away the sand, you'll find the remains of a ruinous Sphinx. Now, the Egyptians have not allowed that either way, but I'm not convinced there's a Sphinx there either. It's almost to the point where you can look at any rock on the Giza plateau and say, well, this was once a Sphinx, but so eroded we can't really tell one way or another. I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but sometimes I feel like it gets to that point. Now, more seriously, so I don't take either just due north or due south of the Sphinx. I just don't think there's a lot of evidence for that. More seriously, I have often personally speculated in my own mind, not necessarily in print or publicly, but I'll say it here.
Mm-hmm.
Could there be a Sphinx on the western edge of the Giza Plateau facing west?
Bingo. That's where it has to be. I want your answer, but let me tell you where I've speculated. I look at it, if you lay it out where it would be identical to, symmetrically, I should say. And if you flip it, in front of the middle pyramid where, it's facing west and facing Cairo. So if you go back up and you look at the Great Pyramid, there's an empty spot in the desert right there. And if you put the Sphinx where it should be behind the west side of the Great Pyramid, facing west, where the Great Sphinx faces east, there's a spot right there, and symmetrically it lays out perfectly.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So you and I have been thinking along the same lines, because if you had one there facing west, and then you have the current one, which faces east. I think you just got backwards a second ago. It faces east toward Cairo.
Faces east towards Cairo.
And faces east toward the Nile, and then Cairo proper is across the Nile. Yeah, I think that if there's a physical Sphinx on the ground, if there was or if there still is the remains, I think around in that area would be the most logical place.
It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, as far as the symmetry goes, also when you look at the iconography of sphinxes in Egypt, now we're talking dynastic times,
right?
They're usually they're back to back. When you look at the stela, the Tutmosis IV, the so-called dream stela between the paws of the Sphinx, there are two sphinxes on it, and they are back to back. One faces east, one faces west.
Oh, how would you?
But there's two other possibilities, I think, that we should discuss. But go ahead.
Oh, can we build a giant vacuum cleaner?
The problem with sand is heavy. Sand is expensive to move. Sand is actually even more difficult to deal with in some cases than digging into normal soil and earth, because sand, if you try to excavate in sand, it collapses in on you.
Right.
So it's really, really dangerous. When they excavated the Sphinx back in the 19th century for the first time, literally they recorded how they would excavate all this sand, and by the next day, overnight, naturally, half of it would blow back in.
Right.
And it's really difficult to deal with. It's also very difficult. I don't know if you've even heard little things when people build sandcastles and whatnot on the beach. I mean, I'm being literal now. Mm-hmm. They'll dig holes. Sometimes they'll go into it. They'll stand in it up to their chest, that type of thing. Sometimes it collapses in and it kills people.
We need to get Elon Musk to build us a giant vacuum cleaner. And have and I'm not kidding, maybe a long vacuum cleaner hose, I don't know, 4 feet diameter.
And then you have to have some place to dump it,
right, a mile
away, so
you're
continuously dumping it,
right.
when they sort of tried to do that in the 19th century, not as a vacuum cleaner, but they literally, when they were excavating the Sphinx for the first time, really doing a full excavation, they had so much sand to deal with. They set up tracks, like when you do mining, with little cars on them to carry away the sand
as quick as they could.
Yeah, as quick as they could. Yeah. Because there was so much to deal with. They would just literally, it's sort of like if you think of when they mine coal and they have the little tracks and they're not that little, for mining coal or for any kind of mining operation, they had to do that. I've often thought that's where a second Sphinx could be physically.
And there was now when we come back off of the break, I want to talk about Khufu and that hoax. Okay, we're going to visit that in a second, but because of the discoveries of the different camps, the cooking, the sleeping, the families, allegedly for the construction of the pyramid. Yeah. All of this is recent discoveries. We didn't know about this 100 years ago. And why? Because it was buried.
It was all buried
under sand.
Yeah, exactly. But before we do that, can I mention the two other possibilities for a second Sphinx?
Oh, yeah, that was my fault.
Yeah, the two other possibilities. One, and we actually talk about these, are Robert Bauval in particular, in his section talks about it. In Origins of the Sphinx, he mentions very briefly that something else that has been suggested is there might have been a Sphinx on the other side of the Nile, facing toward the Nile, so facing west, but on the east side of the Nile, but facing west, just as the current Sphinx is on the western side and faces east toward the Nile, so that they would be facing each other. But Sir Flinders Petrie, the great Egyptologist of the late 19th, early 20th century, he searched for it when there was much less commercial build-up, that type of thing, and never found any evidence for a Sphinx. Then number 5, the fifth possibility, and actually the fifth possibility does not preclude a second Sphinx on the ground, but I personally do believe in, quote, the fifth possibility, which is that the Sphinx faces due east on the equinox, absolutely faces east, and going back to our magical number, about 10,000 BC, that was the age of Leo. Mm-hmm. And the Sphinx was facing Leo in the sky on the equinox during the age of Leo. So in a sense, there is a second Sphinx in the sky that corresponds to the Sphinx on the ground.
But what? Okay, all right. That's interesting. But let's go back to our original theory here. If there is west of the Great Pyramid, facing west, a second Sphinx out there in the desert, right?
Yeah.
What would be the constellation or zodiac sign at 10,005? If facing east, it's Taurus. We understand that, right? Or Leo.
No. 10,000. You're talking age of Leo.
It's Leo going east. What would be facing west at 10,500 BC? The opposite of Leo.
Ask Katie. What's opposite of Leo? Aquarius.
Now that's interesting.
So that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
That would be very interesting. Yeah.
Man, if we find the second Sphinx, we got to put a Fade to Black T-shirt on that Sphinx.
Absolutely. But you might need a big T-shirt.
Yeah, it would be, but I would do it. But there's something, the more I've looked at so much satellite imaging, just like you have, Dr. Schoch, and I'm telling you, it looks like there is something there. And if you go with the symmetry, it just feels like there is something in that part of the desert.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. We've been obviously thinking along the same lines for that.
And going again south and west of the Giza plateau, if you look at not only the alignment with Orion, of course, with the three that are there, But it looks like the complex, to me, just continued. Is there any archaeology going on south and west of Giza continual, or is it just nothing going on out there?
Oh, you mean modern archaeology?
Yeah, right now. Is anybody out there looking?
Right now, I mean, the last I understood is that they are, I don't want to say closing down concessions, that's their term for it, but they're not allowing new projects to start as far as actual excavation, that type of thing, which is interesting. See, when I want to get into the chamber, the first thing I would do, which from speaking with the archaeologists, with the Egyptian authorities, they would allow, is I would do more geophysics, etc., which is not actual excavation.
Right.
But right now they are really putting a damper on actual excavation.
Why, before I say, they're afraid of revealing stuff, but why is it? Why shouldn't they be encouraging just that? Well, it gets into politics again, that type of thing, and it also gets into the how should we say it, the real problems with the whole situation in Egypt. I mean, it's gone through these revolutions and counter-revolutions. It's very unstable recently. There's been ambushes in Egypt recently. There's been bombs going off. And I think that, and I don't want to defend them too much in some ways, but I think there is something genuine to be said that they don't want to start opening up new projects and having more artifacts and antiquities exposed under such unstable conditions. So I interviewed Josh Gates this past Saturday on Coast to Coast from Cairo, right? He's there for a couple of weeks filming his new show. And I said, so what's it like out there with tourism? And this is what he said to me on Saturday night on Coast to Coast. He said, if you went out to the Great Pyramid, you would be the only person in the King's Chamber. You would be alone. Oh, yeah. That's what I've experienced. I was there earlier this year. It's tourism is... It's gone. I have not seen such a low in tourism, my trips back and forth to Egypt, since the, what do they call it, the first Gulf War. Right. Yeah, he said that, 10 years ago when he went out there, that there would literally be 20 or 30,000 people a day out there taking tours. He said today, all day long on the plateau, maybe 1,000 people. And he said, Jimmy, it is so big and so vast. When I say 1,000 people, you're alone. It's empty. You're alone. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I experienced my last time I was there earlier this year. That's what John Anthony West and Katie and I experienced when we were there in the summer of 2016. We were there for an extended period of time, and it was just absolutely amazing compared to what it used to be. There's so many camels out of work, and I'm not joking. No, it's not a joke. But the camels, and they're not being fed properly because the camel drivers, the owners, aren't getting the customers that they need. When you go to Middle and Upper Egypt, they have the boats that cruise the Niles. Right. Cruise the Nile. They're made just to cruise the Nile, and the vast majority of them are now mothballed and rotting away because, boat needs to be maintained. Wow, that's unbelievable. It's not, and you can't just pull them out of mothballs. When they get pulled out again, they have to put a lot of money into refurbishing them. Right. So it's really hard on the Egyptians and the Egyptian economy. And they love tourism, Oh, they love tourism. We were at Philae, which is in Upper Egypt. It's where the Temple of Isis is. It's a beautiful temple. And when I've been there before, there'd be dozens of vendors. There was not a single vendor this last time. We got to take a break right here, Dr. Schoch. We'll be right back. This is Fade to Black.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA, the planets. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. We have the chat rooms live and active. You can go and hang out there. You can also use the hashtag F2B and come and chat with us on Twitter. Everything is up in front of me. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch. Now, there's a few things that I find interesting in the origins of the Sphinx. Talking about Khafre or Khufu, however you want to put it, you pointed out earlier the Dream Stela. There's also the Inventory Stela.
Absolutely.
And which is, they've got that sealed up. And I don't, that's not for public consumption. And I think this is my take. The reason for that is because on the inventory stela, Khufu specifically says he's there to hang out and repair the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. He's repairing the Sphinx. He's repairing the Great Pyramid. He's building his own structures in the shadow, if you would, of the Great Pyramid. He talks, the inventory stela, I mentioned this early in the show, it talks about the Sphinx being very ancient and having been struck by lightning, which I believe has to do with the solar outburst at the end of the last ice age.
Right.
Ties right in with the Sphinx dating back to about 10,000, 10,500 BC or more. So the inventory stela in particular is a really powerful argument, if you take it seriously, for the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid and other structures on the Giza Plateau going back to a much, much more remote time period, going back literally thousands of years. So the ancient Egyptians are talking about these structures going back to this remote period. Now, the problem with the inventory stela traditionally, historically has been, and I'm saying modern history now, is that a lot of Egyptologists have not wanted to accept it. They refer to it as essentially what we could call a pious fraud, that it's something that the dynastic Egyptians made up to give more cachet, to give more credibility to their structures. So, you date it back and say it's older than it really is. That's a classic modern conventional Egyptological interpretation of it. That's basically
it's an excuse.
Fraud.
It's an excuse. It's an excuse.
It's an excuse, I know. The thing is, they don't say that about anything that says what they want to hear. They only say that about what they don't want to hear. I hate to bring modern politics into it, but it's sort of, if you don't like something, you call it fake news. If you don't like something in Egyptology, you say that they faked it. The ancient Egyptians faked it.
Have you had an opportunity to go into the upper chambers above the king's chamber?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been up into the relief chambers, as they're called, or relieving chambers, the chambers where the inscriptions are. Very, very interesting.
Now, okay, I want your assessment. Okay, you know what? Since we're just talking frank here, do you think they're modern forgeries?
No. I mean, I'll tell you bluntly, I don't think they're modern forgeries. I know some people argue that they're modern forgeries. There's been even more recent discussion of this. What I think is going on is that they are genuinely ancient, and I don't personally have any doubt that they're ancient, but I also don't think they date the pyramid to the reign of Khufu. There's a cartouche of Khufu. There's other cartouches that say Khnumkuf, basically, which may be referring to someone else. People argue about whether it is or it isn't. And also, I think that the relief chambers where they are found are a later addition, a much later addition to the Great Pyramid. I've long been of the opinion that the Great Pyramid is something that was built, it was rebuilt, it was built in stages, it was restored at various times. And what my personal interpretation of those inscriptions and the cartouches that you find up there is that they are effectively a later restoration, if you would, or a later addition. That's another way to put it.
Well, explain.
Going back to ancient times.
Yeah, explain what you mean.
Not dating the Great Pyramid's origins.
I'm trying to, I love when I learn something. So explain to me what you mean when you say restoration in ancient times.
Well, let me give a little more context. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the Great Sphinx, for instance, was recarved and restored. It was a very ancient, eroded statue when you come to dynastic times, 5,000 to 4,000 years ago. There's no doubt that it was restored. They've used limestone blocks to restore parts of it. They recarved the head. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind, based on the evidence. Even Zai Hawass has admitted that there are 4,000-plus-year-old restorations on the Sphinx itself.
But what about the? And I know you're quite familiar with this about the Vice hoax. So when
but I've looked at Vice original material too, and I'm not convinced he necessarily hoaxed it.
But he did. See, this is where I think he kind of opened the door to his own a motive. Because back then everybody was trying to put their name on a great discovery in Egypt. That was the goal of the day back then.
And you can see his inscriptions up there when you go up there.
Those are there, but also he fibbed a little bit when it came to Menkaure, right? So
and he took it. I mean, he wasn't the most upfront. He did. I don't want to call him dishonest, but on the other hand, I'm not convinced that he did those inscriptions, and there's a couple of reasons. They look old to me, and I'm not just saying they look old. When I looked at them very, very closely, I found I could see mineral overlays on them, patinas and mineral growths and whatnot, which I don't believe are going to have occurred since the 1830s or so, if he had faked them at that point. There are also cases where they go down. You could look into cracks, and they go down, and when you look down into the cracks between the rocks, they go down well into those cracks. You can see surfaces where they still occur. When they opened up, for instance, the little star shafts or air shafts, whatever you want to call them, in modern times, and found other inscriptions, very crude, but they seem to match pigmentation-wise, etc., the inscriptions that you find in the relieving chamber. Again, this is my assessment, my opinion. So I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that they are genuinely ancient. Now, I would not put it past him if he didn't sort of touch them up a little bit. When you go up there, they don't necessarily match exactly what is published in his
journals,
volumes, because I've compared them. So there's a little bit of funny stuff going on with him, but I'm not convinced that he just wholesale faked them. So getting back to what I was talking about, the restorations, I'm convinced, for instance, that at one point the Great Pyramid was heavily restored in dynastic times, and I was using the analogy of the Sphinx having been heavily restored because I think that's an even stronger case, that even Zai Hawass agreed with it, although he disagrees with me on so many things.
Right.
And at one point, it seems to have been built up to about the 50th level, which is essentially the top of the Grand Gallery, but not the King's Chamber. And the King's Chamber seems to have been either built or rebuilt after that. And then the casing stone that existed on the Great Pyramid up until medieval, early modern times was added. Likewise, the second pyramid, which is almost as big as the Great Pyramid, seems to have been refurbished. And very interestingly, around the second pyramid, to this day, you can see the ring of granite. Granite was used to show that something was being restored. This is even accepted by standard Egyptologists. So it's got a ring around the granite, ring around the base of red granite, Aswan granite, indicative of restoration. The chamber, the King's Chamber, what is it lined with? It's lined with red granite, which would also suggest dynastic restoration, or at least some early restoration dynastic, or probably very early dynastic, maybe late pre-dynastic. I'm speculating here.
By Khufu?
Possibly by Khufu, but possibly not by Khufu. Possibly some of it came even earlier, and then Khufu added his name to some of it later, or did some further work later, which would actually be tying in with the inventory stela, that he did have a hand in doing some kind of restoration or veneration, if you would, to a pre-existing structure that we now call the Great Pyramid.
So when we're dealing with the what they call the graffiti, right, in the relief chambers, why?
And before I forget, remember the classical authors, they talked about there being graffiti all over the Great Pyramid, which has now been lost.
Well, why not? If the Egyptologists are going to stick to their guns, and Khufu built this pyramid in 20 years,
I think they oversimplify the situation greatly.
They do, but why isn't there a Khufu cartouche somewhere on the inside, somewhere carved in relief? It doesn't exist.
Well, I would say because Khufu did not really build the Great Pyramid. He was just restoring, etc. And at that point, he didn't want to, if you're talking about an ancient, we'll call it ancient sacred structure, that would be defamation, basically.
Exactly. So let's discuss this theory. If the Sphinx is older than it is, and I think, let's just say that it is, and let's go back to...
I thought, but you remember who you're talking to. There's no question.
Right. So if that is the case, then do you speculate that the pyramids were built at the same time as the Sphinx?
No, I don't. I speculate that the cores of the pyramids, so this is where you have to be careful. I speculate that the sites, the position of the pyramids, go back to that remote period. I speculate, and I think good speculation based on evidence, that what we could call the cores of the pyramids go back to that. The Great Pyramid is built on what I call, and other people call, a sacred mound. Mm-hmm. The subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid, the descending passage, I think, is very, very early, maybe going back to what I call Sphinx time, so back to the end of the last ice age. The superstructure, I believe, that we now see came later, and what we ultimately see as a finished pyramid came later still. So you're talking structures that were built in stages. I think the same applies to the second pyramid, as I was starting to point out with the granite. The Menkaure pyramid was potentially faced completely with red granite, which would again, to me, suggest that it was heavily restored in early dynastic, maybe even late pre-dynastic times. Then if we go to Dashur, it ties in the so-called Red Pyramid or North Pyramid has what I believe, and this is something John Anthony West and I have worked on together, has within it what seems to be a much older, heavily weathered structure, and it appears that the pyramid itself, the so-called Red Pyramid or North Pyramid at Dashur, which is almost as big as the Giza pyramids, was built specifically to house and protect, to surround this older structure inside it. So I see the current pyramids as really being additions or add-ons or restorations or structures built over and around much older structures.
How do you speculate when you look at the underground chamber of the Great Pyramid, which is a 300-foot descending, utterly straight shaft?
Utterly straight and utterly aligned. I mean, it is aligned perfectly north-south.
How is that? Again, you've put a lot of thought into this. How does civilization 12,000 years ago where that technology absolutely, it would be impossible to build today. I mean, nobody would want to do it.
Yeah, and I want to point out, no one knew how well aligned it was until about 100, maybe 150 years ago, because we didn't have even the technology to measure it accurately enough, much less carve it out of bedrock.
I can't imagine the engineering, the tools that were used to build, to dig through rock. This is rock, everybody. This is not dirt.
No, this is solid limestone.
Solid limestone, 300-foot shaft at perfect, just absolutely right angles, everything 300 feet down, aligned at 10, 12,000 years ago. I can't wrap my head around it.
No, I mean, it in a sense, I mean, it's more amazing that it's 12,000 years old approximately, and I think it is. I think that portion of it is.
Sure.
But even if it were a mere 4,500 years old, which is what the conventional Egyptologists say, and they sort of say that to dismiss it. Oh, it's not that old. It's only 4,500 years old. Well, how would you do it 4,500 years ago? It doesn't solve the problem either.
No,
even to
it wouldn't. No.
Buy into the conventional dating, because no one could do it.
200
maybe you could do
ago.
it today, arguably, but certainly until very recently, there was no concept of doing it. Couldn't even measure that was so accurate.
It doesn't make sense to me. Look, you can look at a 480-foot, 2.5 million stones and look at it and go, wow, that is absolutely incredible. It is. But that shaft, that 300-foot shaft going through the bedrock, perfectly
it's one of
straight.
The most amazing things, yeah.
It is. I just don't know how they pull that off. And we're talking about a step out of the Stone Age. I mean, just a step out of the Stone Age.
Well, I'm not going to give you an answer because I don't either.
Yeah,
I think that there are a lot of things we need to learn from them, or will learn from them. Hopefully, maybe some of it's in the chamber under the Sphinx. I literally am more and more convinced that could be a genuine archive that could solve some of these problems, or at least give us answers to some of these things. But for people to say that, they know how it was done, but they're not going to tell you or something, because I've had people tell me that.
Right.
They know, but they're just bluffing. I mean, that's just nonsense. I don't think we know.
Now,
there's still a lot we don't know about them, and they were not us. They were not advanced like we were. I don't think they had our type of technology back then, but I think they had something that we can't even imagine.
Let's keep the A word out of this for a second.
Yeah, because that just alienates certain people.
Yeah, we'll keep the A word out, but we have to seriously consider a civilization that predated not only dynastic Egypt but everything, because Göbekli Tepe now comes into play. But there was some high technology. A civilization with that predates everything, that was passing this knowledge on. And they inherited this knowledge from those that were before them. And it tips everything on its ear. I understand that, but it's the only thing that starts to answer these questions, Robert.
Right. Because this was it was a peak. It had reached some kind of peak. I mean, I think it would have gone even further if it hadn't been for the devastation at the end of the last ice age that wiped it out and threw everything back into a dark age. But there had to be a lot leading up to that. There had to be a lot that came before. But one of the truisms in geology is the further you go back in time, the less and less evidence there is. I mean, it just gets destroyed or gets buried.
What do you think it's going to take, though? I mean, what is the one thing that we would be able to show, not only academia and the Egyptologists and the anthropologists and on and on and on, what is it that would tip the scale so they would tap out, say, uncle, we give there is something else going on.
I don't want to keep harping on one thing, but I think one distinct possibility is if we did open up what appears to be an archive or chamber under the Sphinx, under the paws of the Sphinx, and if it really does contain records or technology or information, that could tip the scale. If we find more Göbekli Tepe type situations,
right,
that could start tipping the scale. Right now, with the Sphinx and Göbekli Tepe, the conventional academics are trying to sweep it under the rug as much as possible. Oh, it's just one side. It doesn't mean that much. That's effectively what they say. Oh, the Sphinx, the Sphinx is the Sphinx, and they sort of try to dismiss it.
Scott just posted up in Twitter, I think one of the best questions that we have to ask today, which is this: are we 100% sure the Egyptians built these structures?
Oh, well, that's something that comes up all the time. Egyptians, it depends on how you define Egyptians. Something that the Egyptian authorities have accused me of, Zahi Hawass in particular, is stealing Egypt's history from the Egyptians. And I don't know who built the Sphinx or carved the Sphinx. Technically, it's carved from bedrock. I don't know who is responsible for those early structures. They occur in what is now Egypt, so I refer to them as Egyptians. But who were they really? Did they come from somewhere else and invade the territory and carve them and build the Sphinx as some kind of monument? Were they indigenous? I don't know.
Well, it's the same thing with Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe isn't Turkish.
Yeah, exactly the same thing.
It's not Turkish. It's not Turkish.
We don't know if they'd been living there for thousands of years or they were some group that came in and.
I know who built Göbekli Tepe.
Who?
The Kardashians. It's no. Armenian. It's Armenian.
It's Armenian. You and I have talked about that before.
It's Armenian. It's Armenian.
I see where you're coming from. I was thinking of the handbags or something. I don't know.
If you look really close, the Kardashian K is on the T-pillar belts. Okay, you can laugh. Just laugh. Just laugh. Come on. You get it.
There's actually H's and C's there.
You get it.
I get it.
Oh, man. Robert, thank you so much. And, our conversations here are always the best. And please continue to do everything. Now, really quick, and of course, Katie is your right hand. She just updated the website. Steer everybody there for me. What can they find?
Everyone should go to the website. It's www.robertschoch, and Schoch is spelled Schoch, so www.robertschoch, all one word, .com. And a couple of things about it. Katie, my wife, just redid the website, so it has a whole new look, a whole new feel. It's now mobile device friendly. If people went to it in the past, they might not even recognize it because it has a whole new color scheme and everything. And I'm very proud of what she did with it. Secondly, if people would like to travel with me, I've got a couple of tours posted to Ireland and Croatia right now. I'm looking into doing something again in Egypt and Turkey. Also, I mentioned an article about Method and the archive and the hieroglyphic inscription. People can go to the website. They can find that article. It can be downloaded as a PDF, so it's free for everyone to read and to look at. There's links to Origins of the Sphinx with Robert Bauval. There's links to Forgotten Civilization, the Role of Solar Outbursts, in Our Past and Future, the other book we were talking about. So I encourage everyone to go explore the website.
So Solar Outburst is there, Forgotten Civilization. They can find that, and also, of course, Origins of the Sphinx.
And other books I've written.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, the next time we bring you on, we're going to bring you on with Jaws, and we're going to throw a party. That would be great. Okay? Give my best to Katie, Robert, and be safe out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
the best. Robert Schoch. I'm going to take a break right here. Everybody go visit robertschoch.com. The links are at jimmychurchradio.com. This book, I'm holding it up for the cameras one more time, Origins of the Sphinx, is absolutely amazing. Co-authored with Robert Bauval. And we'll talk more about this book when we have Robert Bauval on the show in a couple of weeks. I'll take a quick break right here. Again, thank you, Dr. Robert Schoch. Always a great conversation. I'll be right back. Stay with us. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Let's go.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheTea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheTea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right. Well, this concludes another episode of Fade to Black. I do want to thank Dr. Robert Schoch. All you have to do is go and click on the links at jimmychurchradio.com, and they are right there. His new website is absolutely beautiful, and all of his books are there. His articles are there. Go and check it out. Tomorrow night, right here, Stephen Alton is going to be here. We're going to talk about his new book, Undisclosed. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar. Thank you, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I'll see everybody tomorrow night right here. But until then, be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.